One of the favorite things that I really love about fantasy worlds, and especially Overlord in particular, is runecrafting and dwarven history, because dwarves and the history and runecrafting and blacksmithing has always been one of those things that I've always loved from MMOs and sort of that fantasy RPG. And that was why I was very interested in Volume 11 of Overlord when we had the opportunity to really dig deeper into the dwarven lore, runecrafting and that kind of stuff, and that I plan to dive more into in the history and the location of the Dwarven Empire as a whole in a later video, but I wanted to talk about runecrafting, because runecrafting has the potential to be something very powerful, but never had the chance to blossom. And a lot of it comes down to sort of the back history of it. You know, runecrafting was a major tradition for the Dwarven people 200 years ago. And with the 8 Greed Kings appearing 500 years ago, that gave an opportunity for the Dwarven people to rise up. You know, 500 plus years ago, humans and dwarves and all that were at near extinction due to the demi-humans. And when the 8 Greed Kings appeared, as I've mentioned in a previous video, this allowed the humans and the other races of human-like to blossom, to grow, to flourish. But it would have taken many, many years, and not just many years, but hundreds of years to fully grasp sort of a more technological standpoint, to gain knowledge and technology to help their own people and grow into, you know, a more civilized environment, kingdoms, empires, etc., and creating governmental systems as well as runecrafting. So it makes sense that runecrafting becomes a bigger tradition 200 years ago rather than being something that was gained much more sooner after the 8 Greed Kings appeared. So it kind of leaves a bit of a hint slash theory that maybe the 8 Greed Kings were one of the major factors of bringing runecrafting to the new world. Now this isn't, you know, solid fact, this is just merely speculation and theory based on the timeline. You know, it is fact that the 8 Greed Kings appeared 500 years ago. It is a fact that runecrafting is a major tradition 200 years ago, but then it sort of phased out when the demon god unrest happened, which then led to the 13 heroes. And so once the 13 heroes appeared, that's when tier magic became a big impact on the new world, and of course the humans and the demi-humans and all these different creatures trying to grasp at this new technology and knowledge that was available. And because tier magic is so much more convenient, so much more powerful, and is at a more wider range of more people and more creatures had accessibility to it, it was obvious that tier magic was going to just take over. Obviously there was an easier threshold to get into tier magic, which is why it basically dwarfed over runecrafting and made it obsolete to near extinction, until Irons saw this as free real estate and decided to come in, you know, mop this up, take this opportunity and take it to his sort of own little area so that he could invest in, you know, the resources and the possibility of unknown, untapped knowledge. And that's the thing, you know, the Dwarven people didn't have the time to really advance into it. And this is something that Irons mentions, that he believes it's something that's from the game itself, but could have been a system that was either never really discovered properly or was kept as a very well good secret. And one of my theories to that is the simple fact that right now we only know dwarfs that possess runecrafting, and it seems to be a, you know, a dwarf exclusive thing. There aren't any dwarves in Irons' guild. There aren't any NPCs that are, you know, dwarfs. The only human even in the tomb is an NPC. So obviously Irons and the guild members never really had any accessibility to, you know, the other races that were on the other faction that they could have communicated with. So them having accessibility to runecrafting would have been impossible, which is obviously why Irons never knew about it, which is why when he discovers it in the new world and was very puzzled by this and wondered if this was a game system that was from, of course, Yggdrasil. And that's the big question. Was this a system that he just did not know about, that was kept as a secret, that was a sort of a race exclusive for the dwarf people? And that could explain why Irons did not know anything about it, which is why it's very crucial, and I think is a major thing for Irons to kind of invest into it. And from, you know, volumes 12 and 13, Irons tries to use this technology not necessarily technology, but sort of the prospect of it being a good marketing tool, because it's an unknown piece of technology that people may not understand, so he could try and sell it to people. But I also think one of the fascinating components about runecrafting is not just that it's a very unknown, untapped resource, but the possibilities of what it could offer. You know, it requires hardly any actual material resources. It uses mana to sort of imbued into the actual items itself. So you use mana and it imbues these type of runic language that is from the actual world itself. They run based on the actual, you know, the Viking language itself, the runic language as a whole, with the 50 lesser runes, the 25 middle runes, the 10 upper, and the 5 top runes. So this, you know, follows a system that we know of from even our world itself. So again, it obviously follows the whole Yggdrasil system itself. It seems very much built on that, because of course Yggdrasil is based on, you know, the mythologies itself, and so is runecrafting, the language itself. So both have a very good connection and a possibility that, again, they both are linked. But going back to, you know, the possible uses of it, it's a lost art. There are a lot of potentials behind it. But as I previously mentioned before, because runecrafting requires very little materials, it uses mana to imbue this runic symbol. One of the things that Irons has kind of been stumped on is trying to gather resources so that he can, you know, create different enchantments, scrolls, etc. And what if there's a possibility that runecrafting could do some of the same things that they are looking for and don't need the same amount of materials, or could use something different? What if there's that possibility that Irons could tap into a resource and knowledge that could not necessarily give him a massive leg up in power, but could give him an alternative side route that would allow him to save resources and not tap into the guild resources, so that if there is ever a big problem that comes up and arises, he can use those resources, but while he's using it for everyday stuff and, you know, ruling over the simpletons, he can use the basic resources. Runecrafting could fill that niche. That is a possibility, and maybe that's what Irons is looking for, or he's just using it as a complete marketing tool, which is done in volumes 12 and 13, trying to sort of use it as a way of selling the possibility of these very powerful weapons and tools that could be used to, you know, fight the evil, and would be a nice way to make heaps of cash for, of course, Irons in the Tomb to keep supplementing their resource loss. Again, it could be either or either, but I think what's important is that there is the possibility that it could be something bigger. But we'll just have to wait and see. With, you know, more volumes coming out, maybe we will find out more. I very much look forward to it, and I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments section down below. What your thoughts are on this, what your theories are, and just your overall thoughts and opinions as a whole. But if you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe for more anime content, and I will see you, beautiful nerds, in the next video.